Welcome to the PR Maven Podcast, a podcast all about growing your network and building your brand through traditional and digital networking techniques. I'm Nancy Marshall, the PR Maven and CEO of Marshall Communications. Stay tuned for this week's episode, and thanks for listening. Welcome, PR Maven Nation, to this week's episode, one of our mini episodes, a quick and informative look at how podcasting is growing and why you shouldn't miss out. The podcast is presented by Marshall Communications, creator of the 65-step Marshall Plan process. For more information, visit marshallpr.com. And on the website under PR Maven, you will also find information about my two books, PR Works and Grow Your Audience, Grow Your Brand. This week, I will be sharing my Forbes Agency Council article entitled Podcasting is Growing for a Reason. Don't miss out on that growth. So let's dive right in. Because of the COVID-19 pandemic, the art of the podcast became a full-blown renaissance. But in truth, podcasting predated the coronavirus, responding to the evolving wants and needs of young listeners who don't just want to blast the radio in their cars, like I used to when I was a teenager. Around the globe, there are more than 400 million podcast listeners who tune in for all sorts of content. Because of that high listenership, there are over 2 million independent podcasts with tens of millions of episodes between them. That's right, over 2 million podcasts. Nowhere is the podcast more popular than in the United States, which lays claim to the most podcast listeners in the world, over 100 million, as a matter of fact. The growth in recent years has been astounding. Nearly 80% of Americans over the age of 12 are now aware of podcasts, up more than 30% from a decade ago. Even in 2015, only a minority of Americans considered listening to podcasts in their day-to-day lives. So much has changed in less than a decade. I see that change in my own life. Since 2018, I have produced more than 225 episodes of the PR Maven podcasts, diving into public relations, marketing, and other topics for a wide range of listeners. People from Maine to Alaska and foreign countries around the world listen to these episodes to learn more about my areas of expertise, such as personal branding. Podcasting is a way for people like me to have meaningful conversations with others that can then be shared with a targeted audience. It's a fun, unique way to ask questions of interesting people and learn more about them through their answers. And they're not just people, they are experts, influencers, and thought leaders in their respective fields. That's the best part about podcasting. A typical listener can learn from a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu just as easily as they can learn from a CEO of Goldman Sachs or the head of a PR agency in New York City. From podcast to podcast, thought leadership is everywhere, educating the masses in innovative ways. I'm just a small fish in a large pond, but you don't need to have millions of listeners to make an impact as a podcaster. The key is identifying your targeted audience and catering to them with interesting, informative content that they can't find anywhere else. Figure out your superpower, whatever that may be, and share your expertise with your listeners. I've used my podcast to nurture prospective clients, learn more about existing ones, and even deepen relationships with the news media. Interviewing members of the media, for example, has been a creative way to familiarize myself with people who often receive our press releases, but not always the human touch. Podcasting is very personal, and that's a good thing. In the end, podcasting comes down to relationship management. It's part of the relationship business, and the best podcasters serve as connectors who build bonds with the people around them, from their interviewees to listeners themselves. The stronger those bonds become over time, the more popular the podcast will become too. Of course, there's no secret recipe to podcasting, but one of the keys is to nurture a network of people who know, like, and trust you. If thought leadership matters to you, as it should, then consider podcasting as another opportunity to lead. Given the growth of the podcasting space in recent years, people are clearly looking for all kinds of content that didn't exist before, and there is still untapped potential. A decade ago, who would have thought that the podcasts like the Joe Rogan Experience or Pod Save America would reach millions of listeners worldwide? Well, they do. Assuming podcasting is right for you, there's no reason not to jump on the bandwagon. Strike while the iron is hot, since podcasts empower thought leaders to reach audiences they never thought possible. And you never know, maybe your next idea will become the next great podcast. Put together great content for the right people, and greatness is possible for podcasters everywhere. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and don't forget to get a free PR Maven Things to Do Today pad by visiting prmaven.com/giveaway. Fill out the form to submit your mailing address so we can send you a to-do pad in the U.S. Postal Mail. Now here are Lori Doobie and Tyler Gaudette to share how my book, entitled Grow Your Audience, Grow Your Brand, has helped Sprague and Curtis Real Estate.
Sprague & Curtis is a locally owned real estate company. We're primarily focused in central Maine. I got excited about Nancy's book because she's so well known in the area for her marketing and branding techniques, and we're always looking to expand and learn and grow, and so a lot of us here at the office decided that we wanted to read her book and learn some new techniques.
It benefits Sprague & Curtis to have a large brand and audience because there can often be multiple years between transactions with clients, so it's important to network with them and stay in touch with them in those in-between periods. And this book really helped us learn some techniques and methods to continue to do that. We organized a small book group with Nancy's book with brokers in our office this winter to share information and remind ourselves how important it is to always be working on our network and continually reaching out to our customers.
Platforms like social media are important in expanding your business, but equally as important are handwritten notes, cards, letters. She inspired me to send her a note of appreciation, just thanking her for the book and her insight. In reading Nancy's book, I was excited to look to continue to grow our brand and our audience. I think she does a great job of motivating us.
Nancy's book really helped me learn a few things in marketing and branding and how important it is to stay on top of reaching out to clients periodically, staying top of mind, providing useful information, and really telling our story as a company.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the PR Maven podcast. I invite you to share a review of the podcast on iTunes or your favorite podcast player. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode. You can also join the PR Maven Nation on Facebook. It's free to join, and it's a great community of like-minded individuals who are all looking to learn and grow from one another. If you use an Alexa device, use your Alexa app to search the Skills and Games section to find and enable the PR Maven podcast flash briefing. This will give you access to exclusive content and more PR and marketing advice. Thanks again for listening, and have a great rest of your week, PR Maven Nation.